Welcome back in. Liz mentioned this. If I'm at home and I'm watching television and it's not one of my shows that I like to watch, like The Walking Dead or something like that, there's a very good chance, I know this will surprise a lot of people, that my television's going to be on the Fox News channel.
Right.
And I was watching an interview last night with Louis Gohmert, the congressman, and we brought this up because we've got a soundbite from Louis Gohmert. Cut number 8. Go ahead and play cut number 8 for people first before we talk about this.
I've got a bill that hopefully will be drafted by Friday anyway. Two things. One, we don't give a dime to the UN until they rescind that resolution. And people are saying, oh, they'll never do that. Fine. They don't need our help to be anti-Semitic.
I like Louis Gohmert, but he didn't win the lottery in the looks category. But now he's done something weird with his eyebrows.
I try to shape my eyebrows because I'm a lady and that's what I do. But it looks like he kind of took a razor down the middle that was 6 inches wide and then on the sides. And it looks like he colored them so that they're darker.
Thank you.
And they just they move around so much.
They bounce now when he talks. It's distracting.
It
looks like something on a cartoon character.
I was trying to get the sound bite, and I was like, I can't get the sound. I can't stop looking
Louis
at this.
should have consulted with us first before he went into the barber because...
Get them threaded.
That was a mistake.
Don't do them
Absolutely.
Whatever you're doing.
Glad you're back with us. Lots to talk about this hour, including the continued fallout from what the Obama administration has done with this UN Security Council resolution. Really far-reaching. I talked about it yesterday. You don't really need any more evidence than the fact that the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, came out within minutes of Kerry finishing his speech and just eviscerated him for what he said. And I saw one media report where the reaction among people in Israel was a little bit slower because international media didn't carry the entire John Kerry speech. They only carried the first few minutes of it, and then they switched off of it. And now they're starting to realize the full scope of what John Kerry said yesterday. And I think that there's going to be a lot more negative reaction within Israel as a result of that. What I wanted to do was give you a little more information on what life must be like in Israel. To live in Israel and to understand what Benjamin Netanyahu said earlier, which I thought is the most important thing among this, that this conflict is and always has been about Israel's very right to exist. And a large number of their neighbors don't believe they have a right to exist, and that's at the core of their opposition to a peace plan. That's one of the things standing in the way here. My friend Kevin Howard has been a guest of the show before, and he's joining us in studio this hour. He's with Christian Friends of Israel and spends a large amount of his time in Jerusalem. Kevin, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me here.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Absolutely. You obviously were here visiting family when this thing went down with this UN resolution. Now, what was your first reaction?
Well, it wasn't total surprise. There was always a possibility that the United States would pull an abstention here and not use its veto power. And I don't know. It's disappointing. It's, like you said, 1 minute we're saying we've got their back, the next minute we don't. So,
do you think it was a surprise to the people in Israel? Can you, based on your conversations and your friends that you work with over there, did they believe that the Obama administration was working in the best interest of Israel prior to this happening?
It's kind of split over there. There
Okay.
are a lot who feel that the United States administration over the last 8 years has done a lot to help Israel in areas of finance, military, other areas of diplomatic need. But there are some who don't feel it's enough, that there was not a real understanding of the need for standing with Prime Minister Netanyahu when he was here, paying the kind of respect needed of any other prime minister. So there's been ups, there's been downs, it's been back and forth. But I think in general, listen, when you're in that part of the world, if things are relatively calm and things are going okay, then it's a good day and it's a good year and it's a decent administration. So there were some who felt it was, but I think this is a real telling now of what's going on.
Let's talk about Christian Friends of Israel real quick for people who may not be familiar with the charity and what it is you're trying to accomplish over there.
So Christian Friends of Israel began in 1985. It's designed to stand alongside the people of Israel in solidarity to their right to exist, to be in the land, to have a Jewish state. And it's designed as Christians who stand up and say, look, Israel's an important part to our faith. They are our older brothers in the faith. Most of what we receive as Christians came from Judeo culture and Judeo religion. And our purpose is to help the people who need the most help over there. We've got multiple projects that help anywhere from the IDF soldiers to the Ethiopian community, those returning and immigrating back to the land of Israel. And it's really designed to try to make a difference in people's lives.
What's it like to live there? I mean, I think that's something that from a great distance we don't always appreciate. Even those of us who get on the radio every day and support Israel and its right to exist and its right to defend itself against people who've sworn to wipe it off the face of the earth. That's got to be almost a daily concern for the people that live in the country and walk to work every day and worry about somebody running up to them in a square and stabbing them, or going somewhere near the Western Wall and having to look at the security issues that you have there. What's it like?
Well, living there is actually quite great. It's a joy to be there. It's an interesting part of the world. It's absolutely amazing because it's where the ancient meets the modern. You know, the current state of Israel is known for its high-tech advances, its medical advances, and a lot of that has become necessary because of all that's against Israel. The people there on a daily basis coexist, co-live, co-shop, co-drive, everything back and forth together amongst all faiths. It's really the only true democracy in the Middle East. As an American there, living there as a foreigner, I would love to learn the language fluently because I always appreciate when people as foreigners come here and learn the language.
Right.
But most of them speak English as a second language, so it's not difficult to go around. One of the things I find interesting is that I am not a second-class person there. I'm just as respected and honored and thought of as Israeli citizens. I know that if I have a problem, the ambulance service is going to treat me just as well. The hospitals take just as good a care of me. The military watches over me just as well. The police force is, on my side as long as I'm obeying the laws. And I think part of the misconception is the propaganda machine of anti-Israel rhetoric that has so infiltrated a lot of secular media that comes against Israel and what it is.
Yeah, you're right, because I heard somebody point out the other day, and I thought this was pretty eye-opening. Name somewhere in the world where Jews and Christians and Muslims live side by side in peace and have equal rights, and women have equal rights, and all these places. If you look in the Middle East and try to name a place like that, Israel's the only place you'll come up with. Find another country in the Middle East that's run by Muslims or people of the Islamic faith, and find a place where they're fairly treating Christians and people who don't agree with their political views. It doesn't exist.
You're right. It doesn't exist. And actually, Israel's the only place in the Middle East where the Christian population is actually increasing. It's actually thriving. And in a regular day-to-day basis, I just had an interview. You've been on my show that we do over in Jerusalem. I just interviewed a resident of Bethlehem. He's been there all of his life. Bethlehem is under Palestinian Authority control. It's considered in the political West Bank. It's right outside of Jerusalem. And he told me that the Arabs that live there, even the Muslim Arabs, are highly sought after and highly thought of. They run the shops of many of the Jewish ownership. He said a Jewish owner of a shop may have two master keys to the shop. One's for the owner and one's for his Muslim Arab who runs the shop for him. They coexist back and forth every day. There's a lot of camaraderie across the border lines between the border police from one side to the other. They share information. They share dialogue. You can see them laughing, back and forth. It's not this constant conflict of knives and guns and bombs all the time. That's just the extremes. And it's hilarious because when you go there, the Jews take off Friday evening and all day Saturday for the Shabbat, the weekly day off. Most of the city shuts down in Jerusalem, but the Arab shops all open up. And so you'll have a restaurant owned by an Arab family, and Jewish patrons are coming in, eating in the food, eating the restaurant. The taxi drivers on the weekend are all Arab drivers because the Jewish drivers don't drive. They're carting Jewish people all over the place. So it's a constant coexistence. There's not a lot of conflict amongst the people. The conflict is the political part.
Yeah, that's just fascinating insight that people I don't think they appreciate from this point of view, particularly when you have the Secretary of State of the United States stand up and give a speech yesterday that ran like 73 minutes long. I don't know why it took him so long to say it. But to try to claim that this current Israeli Knesset is the most right wing in history, to try to somehow tie it to, so when Americans hear the Obama administration describe the right wing, they think of right wing radio or this alt-right movement that they like to talk about these days. These people must be extremists, is what he's trying to claim, which nothing could be further from the truth.
Exactly.
I just don't. That offended me more than just about anything else that he said yesterday.
Well, it is so much further from the truth because really, if the Arabs would stop fighting, if the Muslims would stop fighting and trying to shove the Jews into the sea, the fighting would stop because there's no need for the fighting if they're not defending themselves. And that's the same way with all the stabbing pieces that have happened over the last year. There was a lie given out by the imams, the religious leaders in the West Bank, saying that the Al-Aqsa was in danger. The Temple Mount was being changed from its status quo, which it was not. And a bunch of young, radical Islamic kids basically decided that they would start, go and defend the mosque. It's their call to go and defend the mosque. And they just started randomly stabbing ultra-Orthodox people, the black and white coat dress, as well as the military, as well as the police.
Yeah, that misunderstanding leads to a lot of those problems. Kevin Howard is my guest. He's with Christian Friends of Israel. He spends most of his time in Jerusalem as part of that effort. I appreciate him giving us some time today. He's going to stick with us and stick around for the next segment. If you got questions for him, give us a call, 314-969-9797. What I want to talk about next is some insight into, we hear the settlement word thrown around a lot. We hear about the West Bank, which you mentioned a minute ago, where Bethlehem is, and people who've moved into these areas, and John Kerry's claim that this is preventing the peace process from moving forward. I want to pick Kevin's brain about that. We'll get to your phone calls coming up right here on the Mark Cox Show.
Wild again.